Welcome to the Sci-Fi Evolution channel. The alarm sounded like a scream in the dark, and Commander Zev put his four-fingered hand on the control panel of his damaged flagship, the Star Wanderer. He watched the flashing red lights on the bridge. The flagship of the Aurora Commonwealth was dying, and with it the last hope of intergalactic defense. "Commander, we have lost contact with the defensive fleet at Zarian 3. Lieutenant Kyle reported from the communications station. His face, tinged with blue, reflected the exhaustion that had become a common sight among the Coalition forces over the past 3 cycles. The swarm of Xenos penetrated their energy shields. Zev closed his big dark eyes for a moment. 3 major worlds, 3 entire civilizations were swallowed up by an insectoid nightmare that emerged from the outer rim of the galaxy. The swarm of Xenos spread like a plague through space, their bioships multiplying faster than the Coalition could destroy them. The energy weapons they possessed seemed ineffective against the creatures' adaptive armor. "How many ships do we have left?" asked Zev, afraid of the answer. 17 operational vessels across all fleets, Lieutenant Kyle replied. The Xeropides lost their entire battle group at Centauri 7. The Raven defensive forces retreated after losing 80% of their fleet. "We started this war with over 4,000 ships, but now we're facing an enemy that gets stronger with every world they absorb, with every species they assimilate into their collective." Zev approached the main display, where the tactical map showed red marks spreading like a contagion across the Coalition space. The swarm of Xenos moved in perfect sync, their bioships working together as if controlled by a single mind. No single ship was particularly powerful, but the number was endless. "Sir, we have a transmission from Admiral Verox of the United Fleet," the communications officer announced. A holographic image of Admiral Verox appeared on the screen. Admiral Verox's image appeared on the bridge. The Calthorian leader's habitual proud manner was replaced by an expression of desperate exhaustion. His once crystal-like skin had lost its natural glow, and his telepathic crown barely radiated energy. "Zev, we must evacuate Sarion 3 immediately," Verox said without preamble. "A swarm of Xenos has landed ground forces, and our energy weapons cannot penetrate their bioarmor at close range." "The civilian population," Zev interrupted. "How much time do we have? Our planetary defense grid is disabled, and our ground forces are retreating towards the capital, but they won't be able to hold out. We need reinforcements, Zev. We need them now." Zev looked around the bridge. His team worked silently at their posts, trying to repair the systems damaged in their last skirmish with a swarm of Xenos. They all knew the truth. No reinforcements were coming. Zev finally spoke. "Perhaps someone will answer Verox's call for help." He nodded solemnly and disappeared. Zev turned to his communications officer and ordered him to send a high-priority distress signal to all Coalition frequencies. "Inform them that we need immediate military support at Sarion 3, he said. Zev stammered, searching for words that could convince someone to lend a helping hand. "This is our last battle," he told the communications officer. The signal was sent to the vastness of space, carrying an urgent request from the Coalition for help to every member of the world. He traveled through space, reaching worlds that had fallen, worlds that were preparing defenses, and worlds that had never heard of the threat of a swarm of Xenos. Captain Torrance was busy checking the cargo manifests on the Starfarer, which was 3 days away from Terra. The message reached him aboard his ship, which was carrying mining equipment and medical supplies. The outer colonies were a routine task for the ship's crew, who had seen better days. "Captain, you need to hear this," Engineer Bob said as he climbed the narrow staircase connecting the cargo hold to the upper decks of the ship. The bridge of the Starfarer was lively and efficient, with displays highlighted in green and yellow indicating the proper functioning of the ship systems. "What is it, Bob?" asked Torrance. "Emergency transmission, sir," She's on the Coalition's frequency. They are requesting military assistance. Torrance's brow furrowed. Terra had joined the Intergalactic Defense 2 cycles ago, and most members of the species still considered humans to be newbies. The Coalition was polite but distant, accepting Terra's membership but making it clear that they considered human technology to be primitive. "Replay," Torrance ordered, and the message filled the bridge with static and urgency. Commander Zev's voice described the threat of a swarm of Xenos, devastated worlds, and countless lost lives. The most advanced fleets of the Coalition had been destroyed, and lives had already been lost. Their energy weapons were ineffective, and they needed help from anyone who could provide it. Torrance studied the star charts displayed on his navigation screen, with Sarion 3 marked in red indicating an active threat zone. The message warned that entire civilizations were being devoured by an insectoid army that had adapted to every weapon used against it. "Sir, what should we do?" Lisa, the navigator, asked from her station. Torrance had extensive experience in the merchant marine, having served for 15 standard years, and before that he had spent 8 standard years in the Terran Navy. He was well versed in military protocol and knew that civilian ships like the Starfarer had no business fighting galactic wars. However, he also knew that people were dying. "Bob, can you boost our transmission power?" "Sure, Captain. How far do you want to reach Terra?" "I want to contact Terra Command directly." Engineer Bob worked on his controls for several minutes. Powered by the ship's cargo bay lighting and secondary systems, the Star Wanderer was not designed for long-range communications. However, Bob has been working with the ship's systems for 20 standard years. "You're connected, Captain. A direct line to Terra Command." Torrance activated the communication system and spoke clearly into the transmitter. "Terra Command, this is Captain Torrance from the Star Traveler. I'm transmitting a high-priority distress signal from the Intergalactic Defense. They are requesting immediate military assistance. Several planets have fallen to an unknown enemy force. Please inform us about your instructions." The answer came sooner than Torrance expected. A clear military voice answered within a few minutes. "Starfarer, this is General Adams from Terra Command. We have received your transmission and the Coalition's distress call. Please maintain radio silence while we assess the situation." Torrance and his team were waiting for an answer. The merchant ship, calmly aware of the gravity of the situation but unsure of its role, continued its journey through space. Terra Command received an urgent request from the Coalition, and when General Adams returned to the communication channel, his tone was different. "Captain Torrance, please transmit the following message. Terra Command is dispatching the 3rd Terran Marine Battalion and the 7th Fleet to assist. The estimated time of their arrival on Zarian 3 is 72 standard hours. Tell them to hold their positions." Torrance felt his breath catch in his throat as he realized that the 7th Fleet was the most formidable military force on Terra, and the 3rd Marine Battalion was one of humanity's most experienced combat units. The Terra Command devoted significant resources to helping a species that most people had never heard of. "I understand, Terra Command, and I will pass on your message." Torrance's message immediately opened a channel on the Coalition's frequencies and broadcast Terra's response into the darkness of space. The alien commanders found out that help was coming from a new and primitive member of their alliance. They had no idea what they were asking for, but Admiral Verox stood on the observation deck of the Coalition Command Station, watching the blue-green planet Zarian 3 slowly rotate below. Black smoke rose from dozens of crash sites all over the surface where the Xenos swarm ships had landed. The insectoid invaders spread like a disease through major cities, consuming everything in their path. Long-range sensors detected approaching vessels. Commander Yaxun reported from the tactical station. The young Keltorian officer's skin shimmered with nervous energy as he reported an unknown configuration approaching from Sector 77 Mark IV. Verox went to the main display to show the tactical image. 15 ships were moving towards Zarian 3. On Zarian 3, at standard coalition speed, the vessels were strange, angular structures made of metal and ceramics, instead of the bioorganic materials favored by most advanced species. They looked primitive, almost crude, compared to the smooth lines of the coalition warships. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the lead ship." The communications officer identified them as the Terran 7th Fleet. Verox felt a moment of confusion. "Terrans are people." "Yes, sir. These are the species that joined the Coalition 2 cycles ago. Their homeworld is classified as primitive by the Cultural Assessment Council." Verox vaguely remembered people. Terra was granted membership in the Coalition mainly as a diplomatic gesture, despite their crude technology and backward social development. Their representatives seemed harmless enough, although there was something disturbing about their forward-looking eyes and their tendency to show their teeth when they were pleased. "Turn it on." Verox ordered the main screen to flicker, showing the bridge of the human flagship. A man in a military uniform was looking at them. His face was harder than Verox remembered from diplomatic meetings, with scars visible on his jaw and neck. Behind him, other people worked at control stations that seemed to use physical buttons and switches instead of the mental interfaces favored by civilized species. "This is Colonel Davis of the Terran Marine Corps," the man said in a rough guttural language that humans called English. The universal translator translated his words with a slight delay. "We have received your distress signal." Verox studied the human commander, Davis. He had the same forward-facing eyes as all members of his species, but there was something else about him. A calmness that seemed inappropriate given the desperate situation they were facing. "Colonel Davis, I'm Admiral Verox from the Coalition Defense Forces. Confirm your response, but we must warn you that the situation is extremely dangerous. The Xenos swarm forces have already destroyed our most advanced battle fleets. Their bioarmor adapts to our energy weapons within minutes of first contact." Davis nodded in understanding. "Admiral, what enemy forces are we facing?" According to ground estimates, there are over 50,000 individual Xenos swarm drones across the planet's surface, with an unknown number still in bioships in orbit. Each drone is approximately 8 feet tall, armed with natural weapons capable of cutting through our toughest alloys. Any air support we have is useless against the flying Xenos swarm creatures, which are roughly the size of our fighters and move in coordinated swarms. They turned out to be immune to our plasma weapons. Davis turned to talk to another man on the bridge. Their conversation was too quiet for the translator to pick it up. When he turned back to the screen, his expression hadn't changed. "Admiral, we need to act quickly. We have no choice but to join the fight. Begin landing operations immediately. My Marines will establish a foothold around the capital, while our fleet provides orbital support." Verox felt his crystalline skin darken with worry. These people clearly did not understand what they were facing. "Colonel, with all due respect, your men may not be ready for this type of combat. The swarm of Xenos is unlike any enemy the Coalition has faced. Perhaps it would be better if you stayed in orbit and provided logistical support." Something flashed in Davis's eyes, which made Verox step back from the screen for a moment. The man looked like something out of the nightmare stories Verox had heard as a child. "Admiral, my Marines are ready to fight. We'll be on Earth in 2 standard hours." The broadcast ended, leaving Verox staring at a blank screen. Around him, the Coalition bridge crew worked quietly, preparing for what they considered their final battle. In 2 standard hours, Verox, the Coalition's tactical computers watched through long-range sensors as the human fleet began launching objects towards the planet's surface. The objects were identified as simple kinetic projectiles, pieces of metal accelerated to high speed by chemical explosives. Admiral, humans have bombarded the planet with primitive weapons. Commander Jackson reported that they appeared to be using solid projectiles rather than energy weapons. Verox shook his head. These people were even more retarded than he thought. Kinetic weapons were abandoned by most civilized species thousands of years ago. It was crude, ineffective, and caused unnecessary destruction to the planetary infrastructure. The first human landing craft descended through the atmosphere of Zarian 3:30 standard minutes later. They were simple metal boxes with chemical missiles, nothing like the elegant anti-gravity vessels used by the coalition forces. Verox watched as dozens of them landed on the surface. Of these crude transports, some landed in the ruins of the capital, right in the middle of the largest swarm of Xenos. The communications officer announced that the coalition ground forces had established contact with human military units. The humans were advancing directly towards the Xenos swarm's positions. Verox activated his personal communicator. "Commander Zev, what is your status?" Zev's voice crackled over the speaker, punctuated by the sounds of gunfire. "Admiral, the humans have landed in Sector 7. They are moving towards the main concentration of the Xenos swarm on foot. I tried to warn them about the drone swarms, but they wouldn't listen." There was a pause, filled with even more gun sounds. "Admiral, you have to see this." The main display switched to the ground view from one of Zev's reconnaissance drones. Verox watched in amazement as the human soldiers advanced through the street, filled with rubble and abandoned vehicles. They moved in small groups, each man carrying what looked like primitive projectile weapons. Xenos swarm drones appeared from behind buildings and sewer tunnels, just as they suppressed the ground forces of the coalition. They were 8-foot insectoid creatures with sharpened claws and bioarmor capable of deflecting energy weapons. They moved with coordinated precision, surrounding the human soldiers from multiple directions. Verox expected humans to retreat like any intelligent species when faced with such odds. Instead, people did something that surprised him. They attacked the Xenos swarm drones, running straight at them, their weapons firing rapid bursts of solid projectiles. The primitive bullets hit the bioarmor, which proved immune to the coalition's plasma weapons, and the armor cracked. Chunks of chitin flew through the air as kinetic projectiles penetrated biological defenses that seemed invincible. But that wasn't the most disturbing thing. The most disturbing thing was, part of the scene involved watching humans as they moved like predators, splitting into groups without verbal communication and flanking the hive drones with tactical precision, suggesting millions of years of evolutionary hunting behavior. When the Xenos swarm creatures struck back with their natural weapons, the humans absorbed the blows that were supposed to kill them and continued to fight. Verox watched as one human soldier was stabbed in the chest with a claw that would have killed any other species. The man stumbled, looked at his torn uniform and bleeding wound, and then fired at the Xenos swarm drone, aiming at what Verox mistook for his head. "Commander Zev," Verox said into his communicator. "What kind of people are these?" "I do not know, Admiral," Zev replied. "But they are winning." On the tactical screen, the red dots representing the Xenos swarm positions began to disappear as the human forces advanced through the city. The primitive projectile weapons, which coalition scientists dismissed as crude and ineffective, systematically destroyed an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Verox realized that Terra's classification as a primitive world might have to be revised. Dr. Kane got off the human transport shuttle and immediately started coughing. The air on Zarian 3 was thick with smoke and dust from the ongoing battle around it. Coalition medical personnel rushed to help the wounded soldiers from both human and alien forces. Admiral Verox approached the human doctor, his crystalline skin shimmering with curiosity and concern. "Dr. Kane, thank you for coming. We have a lot of questions about your appearance." Kane adjusted his medical scanner and looked around the makeshift command center. Coalition officers have been working at their posts so far. The human soldiers moved through the area with casual confidence. The contrast was striking. The aliens moved with caution, as if the damaged environment could harm them at any moment. People acted as if they were in their element in a war zone. "What would you like to know, Admiral?" asked Kane, opening his portable medical kit. "Your soldiers," Verox began cautiously. "They are different from what we expected. The Xenos swarm drones that were killing our forces don't seem to be able to fight your people effectively. How is this possible?" Dr. Kane smiled, baring his teeth, a human expression that many species of Coalition find disturbing. "Admiral, has anyone explained to you what kind of world Terra is? Your planet is classified as primitive by our cultural standards," Verox replied. "Limited technology, tribal conflicts, crude energy systems." "That's not what I mean," Kane said. He activated the holographic display from his medical scanner. "I mean the biological classification. Terra belongs to the Death class." Commander Zev, who was watching from afar, approached the planet of death. "What does that mean?" Kane's display showed images of the surface of Terra, with mountains covered in ice and snow, deserts where temperatures reach deadly levels, and oceans that can crush most life forms under their pressure. This means that Terra is actively trying to kill everything that lives on it. Whether animals, plants, diseases, and even changes in atmospheric pressure can be fatal for most galactic species. Verox studied the images with growing concern. "Your people have evolved on this world. Not just evolved, Admiral. We have prospered. Humans have spread to every continent, every climate zone, and every environment Terra could create. We've learned to survive in places where temperatures drop low enough to freeze most body fluids. We've learned to live at altitudes where there's barely enough oxygen to breathe. We swim in water that will crush your bones, and we climb mountains. The mountains were there for entertainment." Zev's eyes darkened with worry. Kane continued to enjoy the reactions of people participating in activities that would be considered extreme survival training for most species. "We jump out of airplanes for fun. We climb vertical cliffs without any safety equipment. Some people run more than 26 miles nonstop just to see if they can." Kane switched to the display showing Terra's wildlife. Images of huge predators with sharpened teeth, venomous creatures smaller than a finger that can kill in minutes, and insects that can strip flesh from bones in hours. "These are some of the creatures that humans evolved next to," Kane explained. "We shared our world with predators that would make your drone swarm look tame. The average human child learns to identify dozens of plants and animals that could kill them before reaching adulthood." Admiral Verox felt his telepathic crown emitting distress signals, and Kane replied, "How are your people holding up?" "We're adapting. The human immune system is designed to fight diseases that would kill most galactic life forms in a matter of hours. Our bones are strong enough to withstand impacts that would shatter the bones of other species. Our muscles and cardiovascular systems are built for endurance, allowing us to chase prey over vast distances until it collapses from exhaustion." A disturbance outside the command center interrupted their conversation. Through the doorway, they could see human soldiers working with some kind of equipment. Sergeant Lopez connected the Coalition's energy weapons to human projectile systems, creating hybrid devices that engineers of any kind had not foreseen. "What's he doing?" asked Kane. Kane replied, "Humans have a remarkable ability to adapt existing technologies for new purposes. We call it getting out, or building in a hurry. This skill has been honed over millions of years using any available tools." The Coalition watched Lopez test his modified weapon. The device emitted a beam of coal-based energy surrounding the human projectile. Upon hitting the armor section of the Xenos swarm, the armor not only cracked, but also disintegrated. Verox turned to Kane. "Your people developed this weapon in a matter of hours," Kane remarked. Lopez is a combat engineer, but most people acquire basic mechanical and technical skills in childhood. Nothing comes easy in our world. Every tool, shelter, and source of sustenance must be obtained from a hostile environment. A human medic approached, carrying a stretcher with Private Johnson. Johnson was hit by a swarm of Xenos weapons during the morning battle. The Coalition's medical team declared him dead after scans revealed foreign toxins in his bloodstream. Johnson sat up on the stretcher and looked around. "Doc, can I go back to my squad?" "I feel great," Kane said. Johnson was examined by medical equipment while Verox and Zev looked on in amazement. The biological weapon was still inside him, but his body seemed to have neutralized it faster than it could do any harm. "How is he still alive?" whispered Zev. Kane explained that the human immune system evolved on a planet where deadly toxins were commonplace, including snake venom, plant poisons, bacterial infections, and viral diseases. The human body is like a biological warfare laboratory, constantly fending off threats that could instantly kill other species. Johnson stood up and stretched, thanking the doctor. "I'll try not to get poisoned anymore," he said as he left. Verox grabbed Kane's arm. "Doctor, how many people are on Terra?" "About 8 billion. "And how many are in the army?" "Perhaps 50 million across all branches of the armed forces and colonies." Verox made calculations in his mind. The human army was less than 1% of the total population. The soldiers they were facing were only a small part of the human race. What were the rest of their kind capable of? "Dr. Kane," Zev asked, "when your people applied for membership in the Coalition, why didn't you explain the nature of your species?" Kane looked genuinely puzzled by the question. "We have provided comprehensive biological and ecological data on Terra and human capabilities. All of this was included in our application, but your planet was classified as technologically primitive." Kane admitted, "Yes, we are new to space travel and energy weapons. However, biologically we are the result of millions of years of evolution striving to create an absolute survivor." The sounds of fighting continued outside as the human forces advanced deeper into the Xenos swarm's territory. The Coalition soldiers who had been on the defensive for months were now advancing alongside their human allies, watching in awe. Because of the creatures they feared, the Predators found that they were unable to effectively fight the Death Planet. The Coalition made a fundamental mistake in their assessment of humanity, judging them by their technology rather than by a much more important factor. Terra had spent millions of years raising perfect soldiers, and humans were unaware of their extraordinary nature. The main swarm of Xenos, a colossal organic vessel, hovered in orbit above Sarion 3 like a tumor against the background of the stars. Commander Zev watched him through the command center screen, knowing that the Xenos swarm queen, the entity that controlled all the drones on the planet, was somewhere inside. Admiral Verox, turning away from the tactical display where he was watching the human ground forces dismantling the Xenos swarm positions, received a report from Lieutenant Kyle at the communications station requesting permission to board the ship. Across 3 continents, in just one day, people have achieved what the coalition of forces could not achieve after 3 cycles of fighting. As they boarded the ship, Verox asked, "It's suicide. The air inside the bioship is poisonous, and the temperature is so high that it would kill most life forms. Thousands of Xenos swarm drones are protecting the Queen." "Sir," said the human commander, "we have a plan." Verox activated his communicator. "Colonel Davis, this is Admiral Verox. I cannot authorize the boarding of a Xenos swarm ship. The environment itself will kill your people in a matter of minutes." Davis's voice came over the speaker with the same calm tone he had used since arriving. "Admiral, my people are equipped for operations in hostile environments. We've done missions like this before, against enemy ships, against much worse things." Davis replied, "We start in 30 minutes. Verox looked at Commander Zev. "Who? Lieutenant Maya commanded a group of 20 human soldiers on 2 small assault vessels heading for the Xenos swarm bioship. The Coalition provided them with protective suits designed for their own kind, but the humans modified them to suit their needs. They added additional oxygen tanks, reinforced the connections, and installed their own communication systems. As they neared their destination, Colonel Davis asked over the radio, "Maya, how are you?" The surface of the bioship was showing signs of a defensive reaction. Maya could see it through her helmet's display. The organic hull of the Xenos swarm ship pulsed and changed color when it detected their approach. Defensive spikes began to appear from the surface, and weapon ports opened like infected wounds. "Incoming defensive fire," Sergeant Smith reported from the second unit. The Xenos swarm ship began firing. Maya watched as streams of corrosive bioplasma swept close to her ship, almost melting the outer skin. Any other pilot would have backed off, declaring the mission impossible. Maya increased her speed and steered her ship towards the largest weapons port. "Davis, what are you doing?" Maya's voice crackled over the radio, signaling her presence. A human assault vehicle crashed into the weapon port of a Xenos swarm ship at full speed. The organic hull slammed shut around the small vessel, creating a path through the bioship's defenses. Maya and her team climbed out of their damaged vehicle, fully equipped with protective suits and armed to the teeth. The interior of the Xenos swarm ship was a surreal experience. The walls pulsed with alien life, and the floor was covered with a substance that felt like walking on raw meat. The air was thick and oppressive, with spores and poisons that would instantly kill most galactic species. The temperature is recorded at 200 degrees Celsius. Private Wilson reported on the radio of his suit that the atmosphere consists of 90% methane with minor impurities of sulfur compounds. The suits are still functional, but Lieutenant Maya asked if she had received any signs that local microorganisms were trying to corrode their equipment. Maya smiled under her helmet, as the Terran army trained for operations in conditions ranging from the deepest ocean basins to the surface of active volcanoes. The alien swarm ship wasn't a pleasant one, but it wasn't the worst place where humans fought. The team moved deeper into the ship, following corridors that seemed to grow and change around them. The Xenos swarm ship was alive in ways that Coalition technology could not replicate, adapting to their presence, trying to block their path or guide them into defensive positions. The human race quickly adapted, developing strategies to bypass the Xenos swarm ship's defenses. Sergeant Smith used explosive devices to breach the walls that were trying to surround them. Private Wilson identified vulnerabilities in the ship's structure, drawing parallels with the biological systems he studied during his military training on Terra. Maya moved through the changing corridors, using skills honed by humans over millions of years of hunting in difficult conditions. They reached the core of the ship within a standard hour. The Xenos swarm queen was waiting for them. She was huge, easily 3 times the size of the Hive's largest drone, and possessed psychic abilities that had driven Coalition soldiers crazy in previous encounters. Her presence filled the chamber with mental pressure, akin to standing next to an active volcano. She immediately attacked their minds, her psychic attack hitting the human soldiers like a physical blow. Maya felt an alien mind trying to tear her apart. The Xenos swarm queen, in addition to her mental attack, which filled her thoughts with images of death and despair, also broke the mind of every Coalition soldier who encountered her. Human minds, however, are different. Maya resisted the psychic attack using mental techniques that humans had developed over millions of years of surviving in hostile environments. The human brain has evolved to cope with extreme stress and life-threatening situations, and it doesn't crack under pressure. "We have to set the charges," Maya ordered through gritted teeth. Her team moved around the camera as the Xenos swarm queen continued her psychic attack. Wilson placed nuclear charges around the ship's main systems, while Smith and the other set up a defensive perimeter. Human soldiers fought their way through telepathic attacks that would kill most species, perceiving the mental attack as just another environmental hazard. The queen of the Xenos swarm, realizing that her psychic abilities were not working as expected, summoned her drone guards. The guards filled the cell with a dozen warriors, each 8 feet tall and dedicated to protecting her. People saw this coming. Maya's team opened fire with weapons combining human kinetic technology with the Coalition's energy systems. The hybrid weapons tore apart the bioarmor of the Xenos swarm like paper. The nukes were set to detonate in 10 standard minutes, which gave them enough time to make their way to their escape point. Wilson reported that the charges were activated and set to detonate in 10 standard minutes. Maya asked about the colonel's status. "Mission accomplished, sir. We're going home," Davis replied on the radio. The team fought their way through the changing passages of the bioship, leaving behind nuclear weapons that would destroy the Xenos swarm queen and the enemy command structure. They moved with the precision of predators that had evolved, hunting in teams, coordinating their movements and overcoming every obstacle the ship presented. They arrived at their evacuation point 3 minutes before detonation, when the human assault vehicle left the Xenos swarm bioship. Maya looked back at the huge organic vessel that would be destroyed in 60 seconds by technology that the Coalition considered primitive and savage. Nuclear weapons prohibited by most civilized species due to their excessive danger for military use. People, however, considered them standard equipment. The explosion of the cavern lit up the space around Zarian, 3 like a new star. The Xenos swarm queen died instantly, and with her, the psychic link that controlled every Xenos swarm drone in the system. On the planet below, thousands of enemy soldiers suddenly stopped their movements, their collective mind torn apart. Admiral Verox was watching. The explosion from the Coalition Command Center finally shed light on what Captain Torrance meant when he said Terra was sending help. Humans didn't just provide military aid. They brought with them the tools and techniques of a species that thrived in a world where everything was designed to kill. The Coalition requested reinforcements, but received something much more valuable. They discovered that the galaxy contains allies who view seemingly impossible missions as routine tasks. The cleanup operations on Zarian 3 lasted 3 standard days. Admiral Verox strolled through the capital, watching as human soldiers worked alongside Coalition forces to clear the wreckage and search for survivors. The contrast between the two groups was obvious. Coalition troops moved cautiously through the devastated streets, checking their protective suits and monitoring their equipment. People worked in simple clothes, breathing polluted air, unaware of the dangers they faced. Admiral Verox, holding a data tablet, received the final loss report and looked at the figures. The Coalition forces lost 60% of their remaining troops during the 3-day battle, while the humans lost only 5% despite leading every major assault. "How is this possible?" asked Verox quietly. "I've been studying their battle records. Humans fight differently than any species I've encountered. They don't retreat when they're injured. They don't panic when they're surrounded. They treat every battle as if their survival depends on winning," Zev replied. Verox observed a group of human medics treating wounded Coalition soldiers. People worked efficiently and precisely, using medical methods that may seem primitive, but were surprisingly effective. One medic explained to a Calthorian officer how to use a certain medical instrument. They use a substance known as antibiotics to fight the infection. Their approach to medicine is unique. They use chemical compounds to fight diseases rather than relying on energy healing. However, their methods are proving to be more effective than our advanced systems against the Xenos swarm's weapons. Colonel Davis approached the 2 Coalition officers, his helmet tucked under his arm. His uniform was torn and stained after 3 days of fighting, but he moved with the same calm confidence he had shown upon arrival. Admiral Verox, we need to discuss the remaining Xenos swarm ships in this system, Davis said. Verox consulted his tactical display. Long-range sensors show 7 bioships retreating to the outer planets. Our remaining forces are not enough to pursue them. My ships can handle it, Davis replied. However, I wanted to coordinate with your people first. This is the Coalition space. Verox looked at the human colonel. The 7 bioships of the Xenos swarm represent a formidable force capable of destroying most planetary defense fleets. Davis was suggesting that. Davis smiled, baring his teeth in a way that Verox now recognized as genuine amusement, not hostility. Admiral, with all due respect, we've been fighting creatures like this for countless generations. A swarm of Xenos is a formidable enemy, but that's not the worst thing Terra has produced. What could be worse than a swarm of Xenos? Humans, Davis replied simply. When we're really angry. 6 standard hours later, Verox watched through long-range sensors as the human fleet engaged the retreating Xenos swarm ships near the outer gas giant of the system. The battle ended in less than 20 minutes. The human vessels used a tactic that no Coalition strategist had ever considered: coordinating kinetic bombardments with energy weapons in patterns that overwhelmed the Xenos swarm's defenses. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from Terra. Attention! Lieutenant Kyle shouted from the communication station. Verox turned on the main screen, expecting to see another military officer. Instead, he found himself looking at a woman in civilian clothes. She looked older than the soldiers he worked with gray hair and eyes that suggested a wealth of experience. This is Director Walsh from the Terran Diplomatic Corps, the woman said. I understand that our military forces have assisted Coalition operations in your region. Yes, Director Walsh, your people have been incredibly effective, Verox replied. Walsh nodded. I'm calling to discuss the long-term consequences of this collaboration. Terra is interested in expanding our role in the Coalition, especially in defense issues. Verox felt a shiver of doubt run through his crystalline skin. The people had just demonstrated military prowess that surpassed anything the Coalition had. If they want to expand their influence, few will be able to stop them. Can you please wait? What kind of expansion are you considering? Asked Verox cautiously. Terra would like to initiate joint training programs with the Coalition Army, Walsh explained. We believe that our experience in hostile environments and asymmetric warfare can be useful to your people. In return, we would appreciate access to the Coalition's energy weapon technology and star maps of the outer territories. Verox exchanged a glance with Commander Zev. People offered to teach the Coalition how to fight more effectively in exchange for technology and information. It was a generous offer from a species that could probably take anything it wanted by force. Director Walsh, I wonder why Terra is interested in the outer territories. Walsh's expression became more serious. Admiral, long-range exploration of Terra has identified several other species that originate from worlds with high gravity, hostile environments. We call them the Planet of Death species. Most of them. Currently, the Coalition classifies them as primitive. Do you want to contact these entities and invite them to join the Coalition? Walsh said the galaxy was a dangerous place, and a swarm of Xenos was just one of many threats. Having more allies who understand survival and war will benefit everyone. Verox considered this, and the prospect of other human-like species joining the Alliance was both exciting and disturbing. If other types of death planets have similar abilities, the balance of power in the galaxy can change dramatically. How many of these types of death planets have we identified? Walsh replied that we have confirmed the existence of 17, with signs of 12 more. He added that most of them are isolated on separate worlds, facing local threats that would challenge even human forces. They could benefit from allies. Verox realized that the humans did not seek to dominate the Alliance, but rather to strengthen it by making it capable of dealing with the dangers posed by energy weapons. Advanced technology failed to solve Director Walsh's proposal. Verox said that the Coalition Command would be happy to learn from his people after the transfer. At the end of the transfer, Verox stood in the command center, looking up at the stars. 3 standard days ago, he commanded a failed defense against an unstoppable enemy. He was now part of an alliance that included species capable of treating seemingly impossible missions as routine operations. Colonel Davis was standing next to him, still wearing his helmet and looking like he had just finished a training session rather than a galactic war. "Colonel, may I ask you something?" Verox asked. "Of course, Admiral. When your people received our distress call, did you know about the situation you were about to face?" Davis answered after seriously considering the question. "We knew that people were in danger and that help was needed. The rest was just details that needed to be resolved," he said. Verox continued to watch through the porthole as human vessels moved through the system, participating in search and rescue missions. For those who found themselves on distant planets, these creatures from Terra traveled through space to help strangers in their battle against an opponent they had never encountered. Using weapons that their allies considered primitive, the Coalition requested reinforcements and received something unexpected: partners who saw the preservation of others as their duty. Verox acknowledged that space had just become a safer place, but also more dangerous for those who threatened innocent lives. The era of the universe had changed, and it was up to them to make it better.